What's going on, everyone? Hit pause here, and today I decided that I think it was a good time to actually have some fun with the engine. Not that everything that we do in this engine isn't fun, but in this tutorial we are going to blow this guy's head off. If you take the head off of what I just said, then you're thinking wrong here. Okay, so we're gonna decapitate him essentially, and basically when you shoot him in the head, we'll do that. So that's going to be pretty cool as shit. Now there's probably about 3 or 4 standard techniques that games have used to do this kind of thing. One of those being that you just you pop the head off, right? Like the head would be a separate thing. You kind of swap the mesh for the neck. I mean, we kind of have to make the assumption that you would also want to do this on a non-robotic character, like a human, that has a blend between the neck and the head. And in that case, another technique is to use like material masking and then spawning like a new mesh to create the neck gore or whatever. And in that case, you would just the segment of that would be mapped to the head would turn invisible to hide the head. The old way of doing it, or probably still used today, is actually what we're going to do today, just because it's going to be a little bit faster. And I'm looking at the model here. So there's 2 things that to note here. Number 1, if I take the head bone, which I've already unlinked from the neck, by the way, so I can move it around. If I try to just move it away, you see that we have skinning to the neck. Now, in this case, being a robot and whatnot, you got to understand that they're going to want it to kind of stretch with him when he looks to the side and whatnot. So otherwise, you may end up getting weirdness. So it may have to be like that. And this is a little bit more akin to it being like a human, because like I said, it is skinned. The head does also affect the neck here. So one of the older methods, or at least was invented a long ass time ago, like in the old Quake days, would be to actually scale it to the bone to 0. And that's what we're going to do, just because it is going to be a little bit easier to basically, because the thing is, I can do it without actually having to re-export anything here. But one of the things that I do need here is I need a head mesh. I need a model for the head, so that we can have it either pop off or we can fracture it and have it explode or something. So we're going to do that first. That's what we need to do. And I did show this in another video, but all I really did to get this guy out was to just go to what they gave us here, the character mesh, and you take him here and you can just right click him and you can say asset actions, export, and you'll get an FBX file, and that's all I imported. I just imported it straight into 3D Studio Max. One of the things, you can see it's right here. I did this new one here. This is actually the original one here. I'll just go through it really quick. So let's make a new scene. I do have a hotkey button for import file, but if you don't, you just go import and then import here. We don't want to merge. Merge is how you bring something from another .max file. This one will take obj, fbx, and whatnot. So we hit import and we come here. Now it's important, if you don't get anything, sometimes this can, at least for me, I swap this around sometimes depending if I'm importing animations. But if I keep it like update animation, I'm not going to get anything here because there's no mesh, there's nothing to update. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add. And he should come in, and his bones and stuff are not going to be great. If I take the mesh and I hide selected, they're okay, but they're not like great, some of them have 0 length. And you can fix that kind of thing if you wanted to, if you were worried about it, but I'm not worried about that in this case. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to take this guy and I'm going to actually kill the skin modifier because I don't even need it, and I'm going to hope that I can go by element here. Okay, now the other thing is that he's not welded together, but that's okay for now. I just want to make sure that this will kind of cover the whole thing, and we may end up with a hole here. And it looks like we're going to. So like if I take this and I move this away, you can see that he's got like actually more stuff that's involved in his head here. So let's see if we can't grab all of that, and let's see if I move that, do we get a solid? Yeah, so we'll end up with something like this is what we're going to use. Okay, so what I want to do is I basically just want to hit Control I here, and it's going to delete everything else because I don't really need it, and then it sometimes can come in as editable mesh, so I'm going to turn that to editable poly. I have a hotkey for it. If you don't, just right click, convert to editable poly. And we're going to hit 1, and we're going to hit Control A, okay, because we want to be on the vertices, which is number 1 key, and we are going to bring up the weld dialog box. And the reason that I bring up the weld dialog box is because if your scale is kind of weird, 0.1 here can actually give you something like this, where it starts to crush things together. If you start to see something like that, what I tend to do is I right click here to turn it to 0, and I just tick it up once. For some weird reason, and I wish that Max didn't do this, if it is 0, even though there is no distance between these 2 points, they are in the same spot, it still will not count it. So sometimes at the very least you need to go like 0.01, and then you can see that that's just enough tolerance for it, and we can see we go from 1074 to 984. So we essentially just want to weld everything together so that if we click, we basically have two things here. Now this ball is actually not part of his head, so I'm going to delete it. Okay, and now what's important, you know what, I think I moved his head, so I unfortunately need to undo. Okay, yeah, I did move his head, and I can't do that. That was a mistake. I was just kind of trying to show it. I should have undone that, and I forgot. So let's do that again really quick. Let's just convert down to editable polygon. Come here. We'll grab his head and these pieces, and we'll do Control I, and we'll delete. And let's take a look. Looks like we're good. Again, Control A on. I hit 1, then Control A. Go to weld. Just right click, tap it up once, and hit OK. And now we're all welded together, because it's important that the head remain in the same place. Now what we need to do is we need to make sure that when this mesh gets spawned, we're going to spawn it on his head bone. Okay, so we need to make sure that the pivot of this head matches that. So we can do that quite easily by affecting the pivot only, and then we're going to align, which is actually a tool up here, but it's also a hotkey of Alt A, and I believe that is a standard hotkey. I never set that. And you'll get this little icon here that you can see with the diagonal two squares with the underline, and as soon as you touch something, it will put a plus there. Okay, and if you hold it there, I think sometimes, well, it's not doing it now. It did it on the bone, but if you just hold it there, sometimes it will actually name the object. But we're going to do that, and what we're going to do is we want to make sure X, Y, and Z are the same. We want to go pivot to pivot, okay, and we want to also do the orientation, okay, then we hit OK. And now, if we hit the W key, okay, I think I must have missed. Yeah, it didn't work. So let's affect pivot only. I think I ended up missing and hit myself. So we'll Alt A again. We'll hit here. Actually, in fact, I did just click on the head like an idiot. So we need to do it to the bone. So we hit OK. Boom, like so. Okay, and now to export it, we need to 0 it out. Okay, and make sure that our rotations are all zeroed out too. So we just right-click everything, and it does rotate everything weird, but you got to understand that once it gets spawned in the exact position of the bone, it will be back in the right spot. So we're going to export this, and I'll just throw it on the desktop, and we'll call this SK mannequin head. I know it's mannequin, not quin. And we hit OK. And just to confirm that if we align that head without using any pivot back to the bone, that we get it right back where we want it. Okay. So again, position and rotation. Remember to check these off. Don't worry about scale. It should all be 100%. Okay, so that goes right back to where it was. There is actually a script that you can get for exporting. It is called Joss Balkian Batch Exporter Importer. It's a very, very beautiful tool. I love it. I use it for everything. It can batch export all separate meshes, and it will actually move them to 000. You can delete turbo smooths, you can reset geometry, you can even adjust the scale on your export, so if it needs to be adjusted, you don't have to worry about it here. You can export the scale. You can set the format, which is many formats here, set the location that you want it to go to, and you can even make sure that you name stuff. So if you name your objects, you can always say, hey, you know, prefix, object name, and then the numbers, however you want to do that. And that's it. So it's a really beautiful tool. So if I had used this, I wouldn't have had to move it to 000. I could have just used a tool. It'll move it down there, and then it'll move it back up when it's done. So that's what we're going to use for the head. So we need to get that guy basically imported in here. So we'll just throw that there. And it is not going to be a skeletal mesh. Okay, We just want to import it straight up as a standard mesh. So I'm going to grab this guy, and I'm just going to get his material just by hitting that right there, and then we can come back to the mesh here. I thought I opened it, but apparently I didn't. So let's come here, and we'll just highlight that, and then we can plug that in, and it should match. I haven't changed the UVs or anything like that. I did repaint this guy myself, and you can see it. You know, it looks pretty good. So we're going to leave it like that. Now we may want to try fracturing it. I haven't tried that yet. I mean, I've tried it on other stuff, but I don't know if I really want to do that. For now, I just want to make sure that we're going to get it so that it is in fact going to register the head popping effect, or at least, you know, register it in code. That's the important thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to go third person character, and we are going to need to edit a couple of things here. We're going to first, I just want to kind of look through what I've been doing, because a lot of this is just like random tutorial related stuff for fire mode and things like that. That were part of that, you know, how to set up a character with his weapons tutorial that I did. So here we go. We have actually event any damage. Now this is not where we're going to do this. Where we actually need to do this is in our projectile. Now, if you remember, if you did watch the old video, that this projectile is a lump of dog shit. I didn't do anything, right? I just threw a sphere and any kind of random thing on it, just so we could see something. So I'm just going to keep it like that because it really doesn't matter. But if we come up here and we go into his event graph, if you'll notice here, when we hit something, we can actually come here and we can break this hit result, and one of the beautiful things is what we get from right here. Okay, so we can say if that equals, and then what we can do is we can drag this off, and if we just type lit, we can say make literal name. That just lets us type whatever we want instead of making a variable for it, and we'll just say head. Okay, if it's the head, we'll go here, we'll branch, and what we need to do is, before we destroy the actor, it might be time for a sequence. Obviously you guys should be doing this kind of stuff in functions. I tend not to put them in there because I like everybody to be able to see what's going on. But you'll notice, you know, we broke the hit result here, so I'm just going to throw this here and come over here, and what I want to do is just print a string, and we'll just say headshot. So we know. I highly recommend that when you're trying something like this, you don't know if this here is actually going to work, just print from it, okay? And then what we'll do here is if it doesn't, if it isn't a headshot, we'll actually print what bone we did hit, okay? And then we need to make sure that that also finishes. Okay, so it's getting a little messy. Now, projectiles tend to be one of the messiest blueprints that I know of, because of the fact that if your projectile really does want to go through and start figuring out stuff like where it hit, you want to start spawning decals and things like that, you need to kind of branch off of all this stuff, and you end up with like kind of a really nasty spaghetti set of code here. But for now, this is all we're doing, so let's just go ahead and give that a shot. And the other thing that we want to do is we're actually going to just lower the damage to 1 right now, and then we're going to take a look at our third person character, and let's just see how much health that we actually gave him. So we gave him 100, so we're going to be able to pepper him for a long time before he dies right now, and we want to be able to do that because we don't want him dying and then having to restart, dying and restarting. It's just a quick way for us to, you know, make it a little bit faster to test. So we'll come here and I'll shoot him, and let me adjust the weapon shotgun to only shoot 1 bullet and have 0 deviation. Okay, remember this handy thing that we've set up, you know, we can make really quick edits to how our weapons behave, because we hit him with like 5 things. So go boom. Okay, we're getting a lot of nuns coming up. Okay, so what we want to do is we actually only want this to happen. Here, what I'll do is I'll do this really quick, and then I'll hit well, let me hook this up. This is kind of a cheat. I'll hook it up and then I'll hold control and click to make a reroute node, or I thought it would make a reroute node. Hold control and click. That's weird. Is that a bug? Hold control and right click. Anyways, the hell with that. We'll just type RER and we'll go back to add the reroute node. That way I can just plug these guys in. And I can take this whole block wherever I want now. Well, I guess if I disconnect it, it's going to do that. That's kind of a dick move. Okay, so we need to actually do this after the cast to character, because if it fails to cast a character, we don't want to start printing all those nuns. So we'll come here, and let's go reroute node here, and we'll plug that one in, and then we'll hook that up there, like so. That way they both go forward. Okay, and if we cast failed, we actually don't want to. Why am I casting to projectile? Oh, so that way if it hits another projectile. Okay, so we'll compile that and we'll take a look. Save as we go. And so if I miss him, I should get nothing. My shotgun, I thought I compiled that. Did I not hook that up? I'm still getting a bunch of bullets. Let me, I need to take a look at the dude. I think I missed something in an older video. So we do the line trace. Rounds per shot. Now where am I receiving rounds per shot? That should be when I swap. When I swap. Where am I swapping? Handshake was something different. I know my organization is dog shit, but oh, here we go. So I did name it. Cast a UE4 weapon. So we set the enemy instance class. We set the child actor class, so that should go to weapon shotgun, and that should receive rounds per shot, which is set to 1. I don't know why that's not working. Yeah, I'm still getting a bunch of them. So you know what, I'll just switch to the pistol. It fires only one bullet, just plays the wrong animation because I never made a pistol animation. But you can see right there, it only fires the one bullet. So let's see what happens when we hit the dude. And we might be hitting his, I need to move his camera too, because it's actually getting kind of irritating. I don't have a first-person view. So what we actually want to do is we want to take the camera boom and kind of just like maybe like move it up over his actually we'll do this, we'll move it to just over his shoulder, like so, somewhere around there, and then we'll take the arm length and we'll drag that down so camera's a little bit closer. We'll see how that feels about shooting. I don't have a crosshair on the screen. I know I actually kind of forgot to do that. Okay, so we hit Q. Okay, so now we should be able to see if we hit the guy. Okay, I can't shoot again while the handshake is going. So what I'm actually going to do is clear that. So I get no animation, I can shoot as fast as I want. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so damage 1, hitting him in the dick. I'm not getting the bone name. It looks like I'm hitting him in his collision capsule. Yeah, it definitely looks like it's bouncing off of his capsule. So if we show collision here, you can see that I can pretty much tag that capsule, right? I got deviation here too, so let's change that to be 0. Let's hope that works. I don't know why for some reason the shotgun stuff isn't working. So yeah, we're hitting his capsule. So we need to adjust that really quick. And by really quick, I mean probably going to get all pissed at it because I had issues with this in the past. This definitely should just overlap. This, our capsule here, is setting to block everything. So we actually want that to ignore the projectile. Okay, and we need to make sure that our projectile, it's important to do it like this, that is actually set to type projectile, because it won't ignore. I've done this before. Like, yeah, I told it to ignore the projectile, but then I come back here and I realize that this thing's set to world dynamic, and so it wasn't even never was a projectile in the first place. So then, excuse me, I hiccup. Then what we want to do is we actually want to get his mesh, and we need to run custom on this guy. And let's just take a look. So this will hit now. This will hit projectile. So this should ignore projectiles. Okay. Let's give that a try. It may or may not work. Sometimes I found that the two-way talk between if one thing is blocking another and the other isn't, that it's kind of hard to tell. See how we're still hitting it? You know, I told it to ignore the projectile, but we are definitely still hitting it. So let's go back in here. And we will say we're set to pawn. Object type is pawn, which I'm not sure I like that. What is the mesh type? That's set to pawn too. So these are the same type, so I kind of don't like it. So I'm gonna try setting this to be world dynamic, and which I don't like that either. I kind of want to make my own custom and call that capsules, you know, so that we can use it properly for a lot of things, but it's not going to break us. And like I said, I don't think it's always a great idea to just go straight to just defaulting to creating new collision channels for everything you ever want to do. But sometimes it really does just make it easier, and you get kind of a lot of them. So let's go to collision here, and we'll say, so I've already got projectile. So now we're going to make a new one, and we're going to call this capsule. Okay. And we'll just know, and we'll set the default response to be block, because it looks like for the most part it should be. So we'll go OK, and we close that, and that won't show up here until we I don't even know if it'll show up when we hit compile. Yeah, it is there now. Okay, so the type of this guy is actually going to be capsule. Okay, and we want to block other capsules, because if we run into each other, we want to basically bang into each other. We don't necessarily want to use the mesh for that kind of collision. And then what we want to have happen is on our projectile, we want to ignore, we need to compile that. We need to ignore capsule, and the projectile mesh should have no collision anyway. So we'll compile that. So now the sphere should ignore the capsule, and the capsule should ignore the projectile. Okay, this is set to capsule, so that should work. It's telling it in both directions, like, you know, recipient and sender are both saying, hey, ignore. So let's take a look. Yep, goes right through. So now I think we can hit him in the head. I'm not really sure. What am I hitting way out in front of him? It feels like I'm hitting something way out in front of him. Like, that looks really, really close. And we're not getting a response yet. So let's go to our projectile here really quick and check the event graph. So what I want to do is the hit actor. Let's see. I think we might want to do the hit component, and hopefully it tells us that we're getting the mesh. So what we're going to do is we're just going to type name, and we can say get object or get display name, and then we can print that, and we'll just intersect that in, and this is going to give us a hit on anything that we hit. So we'll probably also see that on the wall. Okay, so you can see wall to static mesh component. Right now it's bouncing around, so we're getting all of that stuff, and it's really, really bouncing around. But we need to make sure that the first thing that we hit, okay, so character mesh, SK mannequin, SK mannequin. Okay, so we are getting the mannequin in there. So let's take a look at, and what is he actually called? He is called mesh. Okay, so let's see if we can't Now it should have cast a character, and I'm not sure his head bone is actually named head. I thought it was. Might be called something else. Pelvis, spine, clavicle, it's going to be down here. Yeah, it is. It's lowercase, and I don't know if that matters. I believe I put uppercase. Oh, it uppercased it for me anyway. Okay, well, when I hit enter, it uppercased it. I don't think that's the problem, though, because it's not printing any of his other bones either. Right? I mean, static mesh component. So yeah, see how it's bouncing around all over the cube mesh? That sucks. And that was why I was hoping to go here. So it should have cast a character, and it should have printed. Let's route both of these through here. So we'll skip the headshot. We'll just print the bone name if it casts a character, and then let's go ahead and skip this guy here too. We don't need that anymore. We know it's hitting the mesh, so. It's got to be failing to hit the character. Let's take a look. So we'll type cast failed, and what we'll do is we'll just throw this in here and that in there, like so. So if it fails to cast a character, we'll know. Which should happen every time we hit the wall or something. No? Okay, we're not even getting that far yet. So where are we losing it? Oh, well. Hang on. Let's bypass that. Okay, spine 2, head. Okay, so now we're hitting it. So there was a problem here because this was never hooked up. Well, I shouldn't have to hook that up because in the construction script we're running this, ignore actor when moving. And we're ignoring ourself, okay, which is the instigator. So we really don't need to do this. Just say, hey, only do it if it's not the instigator, because we should be ignoring that instigator. So we're going to get rid of it. And now we're working. And now we should actually go back to being able to say headshot. And let's just come here and boom. Yep. That goes there. That goes there. And that goes there. Compile, save, boom, boom. So we hit his thigh, and then we hit him in the head. Headshot right there. So we got it, headshot. Alright, so we're well on our way. That's pretty much all the data that we actually needed to receive from here. So what we can do is we can run a check here. We don't actually need to print this part anymore. Shit, hang on. I need this here still. We don't need that or that. Okay, so if it is a headshot, we'll still call it out because we want to know every time. What we want to do is we want to take damage, and what we're going to do is we need to do a select float. Okay, and so instead of this right here, what we're going to do is, if it's true, okay, we want to take damage times float times float, and we'll just say 100. Okay, so we do 100 points of damage if we hit the head, and if not, then we just do whatever damage is right now, which is set to 1. And we don't even need the branch. We can just come here. Okay, so once that becomes true, this is what counts, what handles it. But the reason that we're doing the well, I guess I got rid of the print text. We don't actually need the branch. So we're going to plug this in here and that there. Okay, so we just receive from here. So we use that instead of, we could do a branch and set another variable and go down that rigmarole and whatnot, but in this case we should be fine. Okay, so hopefully this makes sense. So we check the hit bone name. This is very important, that we need to break the hit result. We check the hit bone name. If it equals head, which needs to be typed in, it recapitalized that, by the way, so case sensitive is not true. Then we check, here. So if that becomes true, we run through A. So we just add, we multiply it by 100, so it's a kill shot, right? Then we apply the damage. If it was false, then we just run 1 point of damage. Okay. So let's Control S that. So he should die when I hit him right in the head. So I'll hit him in the leg a couple times. He's not dying. If I hit him in the head, he's gone. Okay. So there's headshot. All right. Now we need to do a little bit more, and the reason is because when we actually take damage, which I need to start commenting things here. Okay, now we can find that again. So we basically we're just destroying him, and we're saying, "God damn, I died," right? So, and then we print how much damage got returned. So we need to do something different here now. So now is when we're going to do our actual visual behavior. So what we want to actually have happen is, I'm guessing, let's see, event any damage. We could check here. If the damage is 100, then we know it was a headshot, and we could do stuff here. Or we could send we could basically cast, and we could try to send the amount. I think it's actually going to be just easier to say, hey, if the damage is 100, then treat it as a headshot, so he knows. And that may or may not be the case if your players can do varying amounts of damage. You got to be kind of careful, because what you may want to actually do is to say, okay, well, if it was a headshot, then we actually do need a branch, and we need to also tell him headshot equals true. Because what if they hit you with like a rocket that does 100 damage, right? It doesn't hit you in the head. Do you really want the head blowing off? Maybe you do. Maybe you want the entire body to explode. So you probably want to actually distinguish it and tell the character. Okay, so what we do is we cast a character first, and then after that, then we could cast to third-person character, and at that point we could tell him, hey, headshot equals true, full gib equals true, which, you got hit by an explosion, we want the whole body to explode. But in this case, we're only worrying about the head. So I'm just going to cheat it for now. Just know that there's better. You should handle this data differently, but all I'm going to do is basically check to see if the damage is 100. So we just need to come here, and we need to say equals, okay, and then we'll throw a branch. Okay, so if it equals 100, right, which it will if it's a headshot, then what we can do is we can double check. They both go this way, by the way, but we can double check that he's receiving it. So we'll have him yell headshot. We'll do 3 exclamation marks. So if it's true, come here. There we go. We need to move forward no matter what. So both of these need to, come back here. So we Control S, we hit play. Let's see if he yells headshot. He did. See, headshot with the 3 exclamation marks. I don't know if you saw that, but I did. So now what we can do is, let's think, how do we want to do this? Because I don't have a ragdoll for him. That's the reason. They don't give you one for some reason. I kind of wish that they did. Maybe they did. I don't know. Maybe in the 4.8 we have a physics PSK. I don't know if we have a physics asset on him. But if we just try to create one really fast, it's well, he's got this. Let's see. How does this behave? I think it'll be okay. Yeah, alright, so we can simulate. Alright, good. And we need to make sure that the mesh does have that physics asset assigned, so we'll just type AS, and physics assets, override, currently used physics asset, that is the same one. Okay, so we can actually, basically what we can do is we can take this and we can say set simulate physics, and we can do all bodies or whatever. We can do blend below, but we're gonna just simulate him entirely. Okay, we want to check that, and when we hit set, so he's only going to ragdoll if he gets shot in the head right now. So if he dies, so yeah, you know, I actually don't like that. I actually don't like that. I don't think anybody would like that either. So what we'll do is we'll do it instead of death, and then what we'll do is we will set life span. Okay, now this is how long do you want your corpse to stay around. So we'll say he's going to stick around for about 10 seconds. We'll try 5 so we can test it a little bit faster. And once again, you need to come straight here, regardless of whether or not this happened. But what we also want to have happen separately here is, you know, we do the old head bone stuff. Okay. So we don't need to destroy the actor anymore, because after 5 seconds it will run that. Okay, so it's almost just, this is essentially just giving a timer for destroy. So hopefully he ragdolls now. Okay, he did. And after 5 seconds he should delete. There he goes. Okay, so we're good. Alright, now the question is whether or not we can do this from here, because I know we can do it from the animation blueprint, but I want to know, my question is whether or not we can scale a bone here. So I'm going to try it because I've never tried it, and I really hope that we can. So I think what we can do is we can say get bone name, and we don't really know the index, so let's try get bone index, and this one we can say head. Okay. And then, see, this is literally returning a name of the bone, and this is just returning the index of the bone. So I'm not sure we can actually use these because I don't know what else we can do. What we need is transform bone. Hide bone by name. Oh, this is beautiful. This is exactly what we need. Currently just enforces a scale of 0 for the hidden bones. Bam. So that is perfect. That is exactly what we were going to do in the animation blueprint anyway. Phys body option, I have no idea what that means. None whatsoever. Okay, so we don't need this or this. This should give us what we want. And so what we'll do is we'll just plug that in like so. And we'll see if that makes it so his head drops off. Yeah, look, head gone. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Much easier than I anticipated. Now, like I said, what we would have had to do otherwise is we'd have to run it through the animation blueprint, because the animation blueprint has bone controllers in there. So we don't need him to say, "Goddamn, I died" anymore. And we really don't need to print anything. Hang on, why am I checking? Okay, if it's not greater than or equal to 0, greater than or equal, less than or equal to 0. Oh, if the health is less than or equal to 0. Okay, so if it's not, we just don't do anything, right? It just takes damage, so we don't need to worry about that. And now what we want to do is we need to spawn his head. So the question is what would be the best way to do that? So spawn, we could make it an emitter. I'm not sure we need to spawn actor from class. What we may want to do is add static mesh component. Okay, now the transform will be basically socket name. So what we can do is we can say get socket transform from the mesh. Okay, and the socket name will actually, I believe this is name of socket or the bone. It says it right there. Okay, so we need head, and we can plug that right in. Okay, and we'll keep it at world space, and we will try adding that, but as soon as we do that, we need to say set static mesh, because it doesn't know what mesh it is. We just told it we're adding one. And what we're going to do is we'll type head, and we'll say sk mannequin head. Okay, and then what we want to do is set simulate physics to be true. Okay, and we'll check that to true. So this should just make his head fall off. Assuming it works. And by the way, the head will disappear with the lifespan because it's part of the same actor. Okay. He didn't die that time. He did not die that time. So I think I need to, yes, because it goes down this branch and then it doesn't return. So we need to actually come back here and go boom. Now here's the thing. I think what we want to do is we may need to do this after, because I think what happened is we just set the transform of it to be 0, right? So the scale is 0, and then we add it at that scale. So we added the head, but it also had a scale of 0. So we could either do it in a different order, which I think is the smarter thing to do, or we could break this transform here, okay, and we could just keep scale at 1, 1, 1. But I think it might still work just doing it in the other order. Like, so we add the head mesh and then we scale the head bone, like so. So we'll try that. Okay, it died, but the head did not spawn, so I'm not sure if that's not going to work or not. Head, socket name, head. We may want to do actor RTS component. Let's try that. I'm not sure if the head's either not spawning, if it's spawning really small, or if it's spawning somewhere else. There we go. Okay, so you saw the head, but it looked like it spawned higher than his head bone. Yeah, it's like way higher than his neck. So let's take another look. Try actor space. I don't think that's going to be right either. That worked pretty good. Actually, that was exactly on his head. That was exactly, it didn't even look like his head. What you saw here was when he dropped down, the head just fell through the ground. And the reason for that, I think, is because this guy doesn't have a collision yet. Because I'm showing collision, but there's nothing here. So we need to create a collision. So let's actually do a pretty alright one. Let's do an auto convex collision, and we'll apply that. A little bit slower than it used to be, but it should be a much higher quality than it used to be. And I think it's actually going to go in there and do the inside of the neck, which we didn't really need. It didn't do that much anyway, but that should be pretty good. I think it'll bounce around all right. So we'll save that. Boom, there he goes. All right. Obviously we want a shooting gallery, right? Okay, there we go. Again, I don't have a crosshair, but so now we're knocking off heads. Alright, let's have a little bit more fun with it. So I'm going to move myself up here just a little bit to make it a little bit cleaner and give myself a little bit more room, like so. So what we're going to do is just want to be a little bit more organized here. So we're actually going to run a sequence beforehand. Okay, And see how both of these come back here? We don't actually need to do that if we run a sequence. We can actually just cleanly come right here. So it'll do this no matter what. Now nothing happens here. Now if nothing happens here, it will still run to the then over here. So let's clean up just a little bit. Okay, should be all right. If these kinds of things like here actually confuse you, what I tend to do sometimes is I'll run a reroute node, and I'll actually run another reroute node, and then I will run another reroute node, just so that it visually makes more sense. Okay, like so. This one is actually mesh. So we set the static mesh of, and then this one, we actually want to get rid of that line there. So that goes there. Okay. So hopefully this reads a little bit easier. Like I said, it's just for readability purposes. So we don't have one straight line. We don't know which one it's actually hooked to, because this one could have been hooked to something else and we wouldn't know it because it's right on the same line. Okay, so we set the simulate physics, and now coming off of here, what we can do is we can add impulse. And what we can do is come here and we can give it kind of a randomized. Okay, so let's make a vector. So that just gives us a 3 value that we can use for rotation, velocity, color, whatever we want, just a 3 vector here. And what we'll do is we'll do a random float in range each time. And we'll say minimum of like -50 to +50 or so in the x, and we'll do the same thing in the y. But the z, we want to be anywhere from 500 to like say 25,000. Is that 250,000? 250,000. I do not want it to sling off into the skybox. There is no bone name or anything like that because we're doing it to this component, so this should be okay. We can dial these in if you really wanted to. You could throw them over here to make them a little bit more editable, set those min and maxes. See, that head coat went flying off a little bit. That one went totally flying. That one went flying. I like how they're jumping on each other. See? Now they totally go zinging off in whatever direction we want. So that's pretty much it. I mean, it's pretty easy. We did have to do some weird stuff with the collision. Remember, I had to make the capsule component actually be its own collision channel. That way it was just easier to crisscross this, right? So we don't want projectiles hitting those capsules, you know, but we do want projectiles hitting. We want them to hit destructibles, we want them to hit vehicles, and we want them to hit physics bodies, and we do want them to hit pawns, and we do want them to hit world dynamic, and we do want them to hit statics. So, like, if we want them to hit everything else except for in just a couple of cases, we need to make a new collision type. Okay, it's just kind of the easiest way to do it. I think the only way to do it. I wouldn't suggest doing anything else. Now the question is whether or not, hey, do you want to add blood? Do you want to explode the head? Let's try to explode the head. I think will be pretty goddamn fun. So I think assets mesh. I think we have to do this in the content browser. I don't think you can generate that here like I'm trying to do here. So I think what we need to do is we need to create a destructible, which is right up at the top. And we'll call this, let's see, yeah, we'll just leave it at that. And we'll come here, and let's just see what it did. It hasn't done anything yet, so we need to hit fracture. But let's check our settings. Cell size, I don't really think I need like 25 pieces. I'm going to go with about 15, and then we'll fracture that. Okay, and there's 0, and now the head will explode like that. We do want to have a material as the second material, and I believe you can do that here. I can't remember how to do it. Let's make sure all advanced details are on. Materials. Okay. So 0 is this. 1 is whatever we want here. So if you have like a gory, meaty, kind of gross texture, you can put that on there. In our case, what we're going to do is we're just going to use Chrome. Okay. For that. Okay. I know he's a, like a robot, but it, whatever really works for you. You can create one. So we'll save that. Okay. So now we'll come here, and what we're going to do is give ourselves a little bit more room too. The reason I'm giving myself more room here is because I don't actually want to get rid of this version. Okay, I actually just want to kind of disconnect it. So I think add destructible component. Okay, so that's what we're going to do instead. And then I don't know if it's set mesh or set destructible. Let's see, set destructible mesh. So pretty much exactly what it should have been. And then we want to pick this. It's the only one we have in our entire project. We do want to duplicate this here. Okay. And let's see, set destructible mesh like so. So reroute this, and let's say add apply damage to the destructible mesh, and the damage amount will just be like really high number. No impulse strength or anything like that. Let's just try that. I don't know how that's going to work. I think it'll be okay. Didn't like something. Hit location is okay. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and break this transform, and we'll just set the hit location to be right at the same location as the socket. Is that enough? Impulse direction is invalid, which is stupid because this is fucking 0, and I don't like swearing, but it happens. It's got to happen sometimes, right? Why do I need to give it a position and all that if there's no impulse? Impulse direction. Let's just make a vector here, a 0, 0, 0 vector. Okay, so we're not giving it any kind of impulse. We could, but we're not. That should do it. There we go. So hopefully, I think it'll just like fall apart off of his head. We'll see what happens. It pretty much just hung in the air, and his head didn't disappear. So what did we miss? We're still sequencing. He does die. Oh well, we're not doing this yet. So let's do this. Were we doing anything else? Set simulate. Apparently, I think we have to set simulate. Let's say like actually the direction that never needs to be more than 1 because it's just a normalized vector. Try that. Hit hide by bone name. Yeah, that's fine. We set it, and then we set the mesh, and then we apply damage, right? So I thought that's how those worked. Probably wrong. Yeah, because it's just like floating in the air there. That's not doing shit. Obviously not simulating any kind of physics. They should disappear still though, because they are still part of the actor because we added them as a component. So they go with the lifespan, which I think is the way to do it. But yeah, they're not coming off. Alright, but they're coming off, and they're there. They're just not fracturing. Even though the damage amount is really high. So we should be getting max damage. Impulse strength 50. Maybe it needs an impulse strength. Nope, nothing. Still hanging there, still hanging there. I don't know how these work, I'll be honest. I don't always know everything. So, however this works, I don't really, I mean, I could go research this, but I can't pause my video because I'm using Shadowplay, and Shadowplay's a dick. So I might want to end it here. I mean, just because I know that there's something to do to get the damn thing to actually explode. Apply set destructible mesh, destroy component. I don't want to do that. Set large trunk threshold. I may have something jacked up in the in here. So damage threshold is 1. Enable impact damage. Let's try that. Default impact damage depth. Custom impact resistance. Damage cap. Debris lifetime. Valid bounds. Asset defined support. I don't care about that. Debris timeout. It'll time out anyway with the actor. Absolute raycasts. So I think it might have needed to be the accumulate or the impact damage and the. No, see, I'm running damage on it. Let's try accumulate damage too. Let's save that. It might be the settings in there that I've never really messed with. There we go. Yeah. So it was just the settings there. So now we go. Now his head's exploding, and he's like trying to get out of line. You clearly saw what happened. Well, I guess you saw what happened to those that stay in line. So it might be a good idea to try to get out of line. But you notice how the debris and everything all goes away at the same time as him. So there we go. And again, you know, you play a particle effect, no problem. He's like, you ain't doing that. You know what? He's got balls. I like you, Sully. That's why I'm going to kill you last. Alright, so, yeah, there we go. That's it, he's blowing off his heads. So, last thing, last but not least, we will add another sequence here, and what we'll do is we'll spawn emitter with an eye. Add to location. Let's go ahead and copy this guy again. And we just break this. And we throw that into location. And then the emitter template will be like that explosion. So it could be gory and gross and everything like that, but we're doing a robot, so that should be all that we needed to do there. And you could play a death yell, Wilhelm scream or something. That didn't work. That did not work. Oh wait, I know why that didn't work. I know why that didn't work. Same problem. Remember, we've told this bone to be 0 scale. So what we want to do is make, well, no, because we're just using location. We're just using location. So why would that not show up? Let's try world for that. Because we're not doing it as a component. I think that's why. But the scale isn't even an input there. There we go. If I could shoot his head off, that would have been freaking epic. There we go. Headshot. And their heads are gone. It is a wonderful thing. So this is it, Pause, signing off. Hopefully you guys found that fun. I love it. It just brings me joy. And I'll see you guys in the next one.